So thank you very much. So I'm Anna-Katharina from the Technische Hochschule Ingolstadt, and yes, we wanted to analyze why you exactly want to drive automated or why not. And we looked at a context-dependent analysis of highly automated driving and also to elaborate requirements for intelligent user interfaces. So we have heard already today a lot about automated driving, and yeah, it comes along with many promises. So mobility for new target groups, improved traffic flow, increased road safety, and more leisure time for the user. But on the other hand, what we also have heard in the previous paper, there's still a bit of skepticism in the society. So there are people who fear to feel bored, feeling out of control and unsafe. And we also had this slide already several times, but this is very important to see these different levels of automation, because with increasing automation, the experience for the user changes dramatically. So from a former active driver, the user becomes to a passive passenger. And this we have to regard while also designing user interfaces and the automated vehicle, because the user acceptance is also dependent on the user experience users have. So we require intelligent user interfaces which supports the drivers during the drive in the different levels of automation, and to create by this a positive user experience. So today in my research we focus on the higher level of automation and looked how we can create these intelligent user interfaces for a positive user experience. And therefore, to analyze this, we have first to understand what an experience means. And this is quite tricky because user experience is very often used as a buzzword, and people often don't know what is behind it. So I want to explain now what aspects are important. So why and when do we have a positive experience? So a positive experience means that we have positive feelings in an automated vehicle. And this is dependent on the fulfillment of our basic psychological needs. So while interacting with the user interface, for example, in an automated vehicle in a specific level, and especially in a specific context, we reflect if our psychological needs, which are important in this specific moment, are fulfilled or not. If they are, we have positive emotions, and this means we evaluate also the product positive. And therefore, there was already a lot of research, so we see the psychological needs are the core of a positive experience. And Sheldon et al. From 2001 found out that there are several basic universal psychological needs, which are specific important dependent on the situation. And 7 of them were revealed or identified as positive, in particular important for experience with technology. And for example, now I'm giving a talk, and yeah, so at the moment I have a positive experience because I feel competent, because I'm here presenting at IUI, feel a bit popular because a few people are here, and also it is meaningful for me because I have the feeling I have something what is important. But I also expect that Tuesday at the conference dinner, I will also have a positive experience, but this will be not because I'm feeling competent on the conference dinner. This will be because I feel related to other people and also feeling secure because I have the feeling that I'm part of a community. So based on this basic from theory, from psychology, it seems to be intrinsically logical that when we drive on a rural road with low traffic volume, different psychological needs have to be fulfilled in contrast to an urban road with high traffic volume. So in this study, we wanted to understand which psychological needs have to be fulfilled during driving automated in different contexts to create a positive user experience. And now, so with the context, it's very difficult because there are many different context parameters we all should need to analyze, what we also have heard in the previous talk. And as we're looking at the higher levels of automation, and level 5 is not really realistic to be established in the next decades. So we focus on level 4, and there is specifically the context of the environment is important. So we looked at the road type and also at the traffic volume, because this means we also have also mixed traffic situations. So what have we done? We conducted, again, also a high-fidelity driving simulator study with 30 participants and manipulated the road type and the traffic volume. So we had rural, urban, and highway, and a light, moderate, and heavy traffic. And we used a split plot design, and each participant experienced a 3 minutes lasting ride in an automated vehicle, and each of the participants had one road type and traffic volume once in a quasi-randomized combination. And to have an immersive experience of this ride in our simulator, we implemented with the IPT CarMaker software different scenarios where you see the different road types mixed with the traffic volume. And to further increase also the immersiveness, and that it's more realistic for the driver, that they can really imagine how it feels to drive in this situation, we also gave them a short introduction story and told them, so you are planning to visit your friend, for example Tom. He lives somewhere outside the city in a rural area, and you're going to visit him with your automated vehicle. And our participants were asked to sit in this car and to experience this, and we asked them to really think that is a real vehicle. And we also did not allow them to engage in non-driving related tasks, because it's another context parameter we would have to consider in our analysis. And as we wanted to understand what is the reason for specific need fulfillment, we decided to go for a qualitative approach. And we asked, after their experience, the participants, would you like to drive automated in this context? And based on the answer, we used a technique, an interview technique, which is called lettering, where you're continuously asking your participants why. So based on the answer, you ask again why, and then why, and why, as long as you get then to the underlying need, the underlying reason of this experience. And based on the definition of Sheldon, we conducted a manual context analysis of the recorded narratives, and from 172 propositions of the text, they were coded along the 7 psychological needs. And also by we had also an agreement with a second researcher that our coding was valid. So we also looked, beside the psychological needs, if the statement of the participants was assessed that the need was fulfilled or not. So what we found out. So based on the results, we see that the contextual parameters are important for the experience of automated driving. What is not surprising, that it has an impact on it, but this is not the contribution. The contribution is the identification of different need profiles, which can give us insights for requirements for the development of intelligent user interfaces. So you see here in this graph that the need of autonomy, so feeling not restricted by something external, is at least fulfilled in all scenarios. But we see also differences between the different context parameters. So, for example, especially in highway driving, the stimulation was least fulfilled, but not in the other context scenarios. So now look a bit deeper in it. So we're looking at the fulfillment of autonomy and security. We found out that users seem to perceive automated driving on highways and rural roads as relatively safe and trustworthy. However, driving on an urban area raises safety and concerns, and also for participants it was less comfortable to drive in it. And yeah, so what we suggest here is that we need intelligent user interfaces who increase these subjective feelings of safety. So one example is from a study we conducted in the past was that the augmentation of traffic objects and maneuvers, especially in situations which are not so predictable, like in urban areas where something happens on the user around, but also here in our study we looked at in a foggy area. And we could also show that this can increase trust, and by this also that user acceptance. So further, when we look again in our graphic, so we see that the need of autonomy and stimulation is least fulfilled. And what is very outstanding is it here for the highway drive. So what do we derive from here? That we need user interfaces which support the pleasure of driving. So automation or the automated vehicle can hardly fulfill this need of stimulation. So especially on a German highway, of course, when you can drive very fast, this is kind of fun. And there are always people, also when we talk to friends and colleagues, everybody, there are people who say, we don't want to miss this. And yeah, to ensure this, we need to create user interfaces to allow this, to keep this need of autonomy and to fulfill this need, but also this need of stimulation. And one possibility is user interfaces which combines these advantages of automation and manual driving. And this was one user interface we also evaluated a few years ago, which actually wanted to achieve this. And here the users had the possibility to optional accelerate and braking and overtaking, but the overtaking was done automatically. But if they want, they had the possibility to accelerate and to get by this the stimulation. And yeah, what we found out was that we could balance this problem, that the need of autonomy, but also the need of competence was fulfilled. So this is a good solution to offer this and also have still the possibility there. Or besides this, it is also imagined to leave something open which gives the user the feeling to have something in control. When we look again at it, we see also something interesting, again, for the need of autonomy. So we also see that the autonomy is quite fulfilled. And also the need of meaning, so having a meaningful interaction. But on the other hand, it's not. So what we found here is that we need interfaces who reduce the perceived travel time. So when participants felt to be able to drive faster manually, so having these met performance expectations, and they perceived it as useful, then it was okay, but otherwise, if not, they would tend to disuse automation. And this is, I think, an important point, because it's also something what is has something to do with the need of autonomy. And but on the other hand, when they also saw the benefit of engage in non-driving related tasks, it would also give them the autonomy to do something different besides being forced to drive. But this means, on the other hand, we need user interfaces who make this time relevant and to support the user in their non-driving related tasks. So we see here a work from a colleague of mine who is looking in office work and created user interfaces which facilitates that. And this is not also only imaginable in scenarios like the highway or in a rural road, but not in an urban road where people don't feel safe. But of course, there are always differences, and this we also saw in our study, because there were also differences. People, on the one hand, liked driving the rural area automatically because they say it is more comfortable. They don't like to drive on their own, but others said, oh, no, never, I want to do this on my own. So there is always this need for personalization and individualization of a vehicle setting. And this is also what we have to look in future, how intelligent user interfaces can support that. Yes, so of course, this is only a first step, and there's an infinite number of possible external internal context parameters which need all to be regarded. And what we also see, we did not identify the need of popularity or relatedness because there were no social aspects included in the study. And these are very important needs because they might balance probably other needs, and this is very important future work, I would say. And also, of course, this was only a short-term experience. 3 minutes is not long, but it's longer than only a questionnaire where something is described. And yeah, and of course, we need always to update our research because until now we only have the expectations of the users, but it might be changed if they can really try it out and experience it in real context. So what is our conclusion? So only if all promises which are given by automated driving and also by additional user interfaces who support the users, we can create positive user experience, and this is the only way to also achieve this acceptance. And hopefully in a few years we will have a very positive answers in your questionnaire. I'm looking forward to hear more about it. Thank you very much.
Thanks. That was a very interesting presentation. So what happens if the car changes that we use for highly automated driving? I mean, right now the car is, as we all know, has a windshield to look out, to drive, and so on and so forth. But this may not be no longer necessary if you have highly automated or if you fully automated driving. Then the car could look completely different. Would that change the way you would think about the interfaces?
Thank you for this interesting question. So, on the one hand, yes, because we need to think how we adapt the user interfaces to these new settings. On the other hand, I would say no, because these psychological needs are basic in ourselves. And of course, this also might change if it's very normal for users to drive with high traffic volume in an urban area. Then this could also might change. But I think not because of the interior, but maybe it would be good if it would change because of the interior design, because it means that the interior design, what is also kind of an intelligent user interface, helped to satisfy these needs. And this is the point where I want to go. That we understand which needs are important, we know what we have to design.
Okay, I have a question. So, I think this is very forward thinking. Right? So thinking about how to make the user experience better, but also at the same time, a lot of the car company at this point they're talking about the technology, the core technology, automated driving. So, I'm curious that have you started talking to some companies about, hey, not just the self-driving technology, but the user is very important. It can improve enjoyment, it could improve safety and everything. So have you talked to any companies, or maybe this is already funded by industry? I don't know. Yes.
So, thank you for this question. I'm not funded by industry, so I'm from applied. I'm at a university, but this is one part of my PhD project. So to look at industrial experiences and the differences in what is going on in academia, and I conducted an interview study and talking to them, how they do work on the topic of user experience and how do they do studies, and what they think is the impact. And it was quite interesting because everybody is doing user experience and say they do user experience, but this is what I mean. It's still often very used as a buzzword, and there's a lot of theory from psychology which say what is an experience, but and also theory from human-computer interaction, and these are almost unknown by this research, but also in academia research. And I think this is something what we should build on, because it says the importance of a user experience, and then it goes away from the only safety perspective, which is important, but I think we have to build up on this.
Okay, let's see. So have you thought about what the user interfaces might look like in like a level 4 scenario, where the where the user needs to be involved some of the time, but often they cannot be like involved in the driving process, right? And it seems like they would want to be entertained or something like that, where they need to do something else with their time, maybe not necessarily just fiddling around on their phone, but it seems like the car could help entertain them in some way. I don't know if you've spent any time thinking about it.
Thank you. So you mean which activities would be wished by their users in level 4, or? Mm-hmm. Yes, so in particular, not what they would like to do, which interfaces, but so the things which come up very frequently and also by existing literature is to do the office work, so to work in the car, and what I always see in all the studies we've done is always the wish to use the time efficient, and that it makes so this is what I mean with making time irrelevant for the users, because then it might be no problem anymore, because you don't, it doesn't matter if you're sitting in your office and do something, or you're sitting in a car but then arrive earlier at home after working. So this is, I think, different. But I also found out regarding this question is that are differences across the generations, because elderly people they more like to be experience the ride in the vehicle, so experience to be related to other people and talk to them, and also enjoying to look out of the window, while the younger participants expect to get entertained by the cars and get doing some games and entertainment.